Round 2 is a test of coordination and reflexes. We took our 4 contestants to British Aerospace at Filton near Bristol, home of the flight simulator for the world's fastest and most exciting passenger aircraft, Concorde. There they had a brief period of instruction, including practice landings, and then were challenged to land the jet unaided. And for this test, the simulator reproduced the exact approach into Hong Kong Airport. The instructor and judge for the round is Captain Stuart Robertson, a British Airways Concorde pilot. And the first contestant to take the controls is Matthew Taylor.
And straight ahead, that distinctive Hong Kong runway surrounded by sea. You can't afford to make a mistake landing there. And helping to guide our contestants safely down is the flight director instrument. Whichever direction those vertical and horizontal bars move, you respond by moving the control column the same way. And Matthew not responding to it, he's drifted away to the left and is descending much too steeply. In fact, the runway beginning to disappear. We're badly off course and we're dropping fast. And there really is no way out of this, and that is a crash. So a pretty disastrous flight, but at least he can laugh about it. Now Sue Clark, and the runway in the right place at this stage, but she's starting to climb and needs to push the control column forward to head down to the runway. And she's going to have to descend much too steeply now. The automatic warning system will be telling her that she's diving too hard. And she's in real trouble here. Now, how would you like to be a passenger on this one? She has just about lost control. Looking very tense, and I'm sure her stomach is churning. And at least she's got close to the runway, but it's ended up in a bad crash. So hard luck, Sue, but it really is an incredibly difficult test. Katie Thompson next. She's off to the left a bit, needs to quickly correct it. She's also descending very rapidly. And in fact, overcorrecting, so now she's banked far too far right, in a lot of trouble, and a bit terrified too. And there really is only one thing for it now, to ditch on the beach if you can, because she's lost the runway. So she's coming in over the sea, trying to put it down on a bit of dry land there. And in fact, she is down, but where she is, neither I nor she knows, but all pretty exciting stuff. Finally, Les Irvine, the Ulster school teacher. Now, can he keep his nerve and guide this plane down? Well, as you can see, he is a bit low at this stage, and he's not doing very much about it. And the plane going down very fast indeed. Just going down in thousands of feet, and really this is going to be a terrible nosedive crash, and into the sea we go. And very hard luck, Les. Well, it's a difficult round for Captain Robertson to judge, but this is his verdict. In 4th place, Les Irvine, and the blue line tells the story. One of the fastest descents ever, 2 points. 2nd was Matthew Taylor, who progressed further with his approach before spiralling into the ocean, 6 points. And also 2nd, Sue Clark, whose early progress was quite good, but she later lost control and crashed just short of the runway, 6 points. And the winner, Katie Thompson, who made the best descent, and although she eventually missed the runway, she did manage to land. 10 points. On into the round where our contestants come down to earth with a bump. This is Response, a test of coordination, skill and nerve. Once again, we're on the flight deck of Concorde, and tonight's simulated landing will be into Zurich Airport. On board the £8 million British Aerospace simulator at Filton near Bristol, our contestants have to make an instrument approach to the runway, with marks being awarded for their accuracy down the glide slope, for the smoothness of the actual touchdown, and for the rollout down the runway. The instructor and judge for this round is British Airways Concorde pilot, Captain Stuart Robertson. David Hinchliffe at the controls first. The runway is slightly to the left, which means he hasn't followed the vertical bar on the instrument known as the flight director. Whichever way it moves, you must follow with a left or right turn on the control column. And now he's corrected it quite well, but at the same time he should have pushed the column forward a touch to keep descending. He didn't, so he's much too high and the runway fast disappearing below. And really his only option now is to go for a touchdown on the grass, which would earn him more points than a crash. But he's beginning to overreact to his height, and he's coming down much too fast and straight into the ground, nose first. Hard luck, David. Now Dale Foden on his final approach to Zurich, but to the right of the runway and not at the right angle of descent on the glide slope. Now, can he keep his nerve with so much to attend to in a very short space of time? His eyes flicking between the flight director and the view out of the window. But he's not going to make the runway, so the grass is the next best thing, and down he comes, and his back wheels have touched, and down with the nose, and he's made it, albeit on the grass. So well done, Dale, and well worth a smile. Sue Roberts now. Well, her descent so far has been very good, but she's got a problem with the direction. She hasn't followed the move to the right of the vertical bar on the flight director, and she's well off course, also dropping a bit low, descending at just under 100 feet a second, which really is much too fast, but beginning to ease back a little as she nears 200 feet, and desperately trying to get near the runway. Perhaps a landing on the grass is best, still descending a little bit too sharply, and that's a crash, but she almost made it onto the grass. And at least she could see the funny side of it. Finally, John Horton at the controls. The Zurich runway directly ahead. But can he land safely on it? Like all the other contestants, he has had 3 practice runs to get the feel of the plane. But this is the one that counts. And he's getting himself into trouble. The warning system telling him to pull back on the control column. He's allowed the nose to drop too far, and he's going into a desperate dive now. Nose down, into the ground. That's a terrible crash. John never got to grips with that. Now for the points. Taking the approach, landing and rollout into consideration, here's how Captain Robertson scored it. 4th, John Horton. The blue line tells the story of his disastrous flight, 2 points. 3rd, David Hinchliffe, whose descent was good until he totally lost control to crash spectacularly, 4 points. 2nd, Sue Roberts, again a good descent, but she lost direction and just failed in her battle to save the flight, 6 points. And the winner, Dale Foden, who came nicely down the glide slope and although slightly off course, managed a good landing on the grass, 10 points.
Round 2 and time to take to the skies. Response is a test of hand-eye-foot coordination allied to skill and nerve, and it all takes place in the £8 million Concorde Simulator. After an intense period of instruction by a regular Concorde pilot, the contestants are challenged to make an instrument approach to the runway and land the aircraft safely. Tonight's contestants will be flying into Tokyo's Narita airport. The instructor and judge of the round is British Airways Senior Training Captain Jeremy Rendell.
Accountant Sue Scragg is first at the controls. Her direction perfect, the runway directly ahead. And this is a very good attempt so far. And with this line and angle of descent, she only needs to make very small inputs on the handlebar-style control column, the dial at the top telling her the wing's level. And she's coming in right over the centre line. Just a little bit high, but there's plenty of runway there. And now just pushing the nose down too much. This is too steep, and she badly needs to ease back, but going down and into the runway. What a pity, she was doing so well. Next, David Broom. Narita Airport ahead, but David very tense. He looked to be handling the control column much too firmly. And that's beginning to be reflected in the way the plane is starting to pitch. He's really struggling with it. And the more he overcorrects, the less likely he is to recover. Just small inputs the whole time is the secret. But he's making a valiant effort to regain control, but his angle of descent is not accurate, the direction's not steady, and I doubt whether he's going to get out of this one now. Going down very fast, out of control, and crashes. Hard luck, but he battled well right to the end. Now it's Ian McGowan in the pilot's seat, a bookseller from Galloway, so sampling a pilot's job could hardly be a greater contrast. He's drifted off to the right, and he'll have to work quite hard and very precisely if he's to regain the line. But I'm afraid it's not happening. He's a bit too low as well, so he needs to lift the nose and probably try to land wherever he can now, but he's dropping much too fast, the warning system's sounding, and we're going to go into the ground just short of the runway. But he certainly enjoyed seeing it again. Finally, Police Sergeant Bob Curry. He's in real trouble. That's the line there he should be flying down, but incredibly he's at right angles to it, and the plane lower than it should be, so he couldn't be in worse trouble. But if that seems a miraculous recovery, the hand of Captain Rendell has taken over for a few moments, which will be heavily reflected in the marking, let me add. Now, can Bob make a safe landing from this approach? And the answer is, I doubt it, because he's dropping much too quickly, and he's going to fly straight nose down into the ground. Bad crash. Well, I hope he doesn't drive the police car. Now the result. This is how Captain Jeremy Rendell scored it. Fourth, Bob Curry, who was never in control, had to receive help, but still crashed, 2 points. Third, Ian McGowan. His angle of descent was good, but direction poor, and crashed short of the runway, 4 points. Second, David Broom, another good start and with better direction, but began overcorrecting and crashed left of the runway, 6 points. And the winner, Sue Scragg. Her whole approach to the runway was excellent, but she just failed to complete the landing, 10 points.
Well, nearly all our contestants will tell you that one of the most exciting and scary challenges they've ever undertaken is trying to fly and land a modern passenger aircraft, albeit in a flight simulator. And that's what we asked them to do in round 2, a challenge of skill, coordination and nerve. At British Aerospace's £8 million Concorde Simulator at Filton near Bristol, tonight's 4 contestants underwent a concentrated instruction and practice session before setting off on their assessed approach and landing. They're flying into New York's John F. Kennedy Airport, and judging their performances is Concorde pilot, Captain Stuart Robertson.
School teacher Ben Barnett in the pilot seat first, the JFK runway directly ahead, and Ben trying to follow the movements of the horizontal and vertical bars with the flight director. But, well, not doing it too successfully at the moment, and, well, maybe that's not too surprising because he has failed his driving test 8 times, and he's into much too steep a bank now, and he's not doing anything about it. We're into a dive and just plunging down, and there's no hope of getting out of this one. Totally lost control, and this is going to be a terrible crash. Here we go, into the ground. Well, he knows that was bottom of the class stuff. Next, it's Lancashire's Liz Nelson, veering about a bit, and you can see all the anxiety and tension there. It may be a simulator, but when you're in there, it's so real, and all the contestants, without exception, emerge with their hands shaking, but it is an exhilarating experience, one they'll never forget. And Liz's angle of descent has been very good indeed so far, just a directional problem which she's trying to put right. Now, letting the nose drop too far, she's got to ease the control column back, but it's not happening, and we're going down into the water. Well, very hard luck, Liz. She was doing so well. Now, can Julie Pierce from York make a landing? An insurance claims assessor? Well, one Concorde is worth about 200 million, so she'll want to avoid that claim. But somehow I don't think she will. No sign of the runway anywhere. We're in a continuous bank to the right. We're losing height fast, and she's getting herself into a terrible mess here. And that robotic voice of the automatic warning system, well, getting no response from Julie. And this is going to be a bad crash. We're hurtling into the ground, and a crash. Well, she was never really in control, but obviously enjoyed it. The final attempt at a safe landing, and online is James Doyle from Worthing. And I know lots of you at home are itching to get at the controls, thinking it's easy, but believe me, flying Concorde is incredibly difficult for the inexperienced. But James doing a very good job here. He's kept that runway directly ahead, descending very nicely indeed, all down to staying cool, holding your nerve now, and needs to ease back on the control column, which he's doing, right over the center line of the runway, and the back wheels have touched. Down comes the nose, and that is a brilliant landing. Well done, James. Outstanding. Now to Captain Robertson's assessment of the round, aided by computer printout. Fourth, Ben Barnett. He was never in control and plunged into the water 2.5 miles short of the runway, 2 points. Third, Julie Pierce. She went completely off course and nosedived into the ground, 4 points. Second, Liz Nelson. A good attempt with an excellent descent down the glide slope, but crashed just short of the runway, 6 points. And the winner, James Doyle. An absolutely perfect descent which any real Concorde pilot would be proud of, 10 points.
Into round 2, and after the demands of handling a Sea King helicopter last week, we're back on the flight deck of Concorde for tonight's heat. Our 4 contestants will be attempting to land the supersonic aircraft at Amsterdam's Schiphol Airport. And so that they all live to tell the tale, they'll be using the British Aerospace £8 million simulator at Filton near Bristol. Instructing them on the complexities of flying such a technically advanced airliner and judging their subsequent performances is British Airways Concorde pilot Captain Stuart Robertson.
And it's Andy Chambers at the controls first. We pick it up a couple of minutes into his approach, and you can see he's got himself into a fair bit of trouble. He's much too high and off course, and now beginning to head down at much too steep an angle. The automatic warning system's beginning to work overtime. Immediately below are the taxiways to the runway, and as he's never going to make it to the actual runway, he's clearly decided to try and land wherever he can. And of course, if he can get down safely, he will get some marks for that. He's actually doing quite well here. I bet he wishes that was the runway. And the main wheels are down. He has landed, and the front wheel coming down, and well done. Next, it's Bhupendra Patel. He's in a good position so far. The Schiphol runway directly ahead. Just needs to keep it steady now. Working very gently on the control column. And he's just now, after a perfect approach, gone a little bit too high, and he's fast running out of runway. Needs just to push that nose down a bit more and try and land. He's coming to the end of the runway. He's run out of runway, but the grass is there. If he can put it down on the grass, which he now does, and after a splendid approach, that's a good landing, although he missed the runway. But well done, Bhupendra. Now here's someone in a bit of trouble. Fiona Davis well to the left of the runway and trying hard now to recover. And Concorde is not the easiest of planes to manoeuvre, so she's got her work cut out here. But it's a brave attempt, though she has pulled the nose of the plane up a bit too far, and she is clearly going to overshoot the runway. But if she can still land on the grass, she'll salvage some points. 60 feet, going down to 40 feet, and almost down on the ground now. Can she hold it steady? Yes, she has landed on the grass, and the passengers are safe. Finally, Dr. John O'Driscoll. And nobody's made it to the actual runway yet, but certainly at this stage of the approach, John is in a very good position. His height is good, direction perfect, and he'll just be nudging the control column, making very tiny adjustments. That's the secret of it, keeping a cool head, not doing too much. And he's coming in very nicely indeed over the centre line, and the main wheels have touched, and down comes the nose wheel, and that is a brilliant landing. Great performance. Now the result. Captain Robertson decided it like this. Fourth, Fiona Davis. She had problems with direction and the angle of descent in the latter stages and missed the runway, 2 points. Third, Andy Chambers, who flew way above the glide slope and had to descend steeply to land on the taxiway, 4 points. Second, Bhupendra Patel. He flew a very good approach right up to the last few moments when he overshot but landed safely, 6 points. And the winner, John O'Driscoll. His descent down the glide path, his direct...
Well, most people who enjoy flying dream about a trip on the world's fastest passenger aircraft, Concorde. But our contestants go one better with a chance of a lifetime. They take the controls and attempt to land Concorde at one of the world's major airports. It all takes place aboard the multi-million-pound simulator at Filton near Bristol, where all the British Airways Concorde pilots are put through their paces. Tonight, our contestants will be making a daytime approach into San Francisco, and the instructor and judge for the round is British Airways Concorde captain Jeremy Rendell.
Thomas Marshall will make the first attempt, and straight ahead the runway, and Thomas will be guided down to it by the flight director instrument. The light-coloured vertical bar moves in the direction you should take. The horizontal guides you to fly higher or lower. Not too bad so far, just correcting a drift to the left and is approaching quite nicely. Now if he can hold that line and keep descending at the same rate, he'd have every chance of landing. Just drifting slightly left again, but once more he corrects it. Now he needs to lift the nose a little, and he's not done it, and that's a crash into the runway. What a pity, he almost made it. Next, Fiona Ray, nicely in line at the moment, but very tense, and indeed all the contestants are in this incredibly lifelike cockpit. And the approach is still good, but the closer you get to that runway, the less chance you've got of correcting an error, so she needs a cool head and strong nerves through these vital seconds. Drifting slightly right, but it's okay if she can hold it there. And down she comes, and she's made it. The main wheels are down, and now the nose wheel touches down on the tarmac. And she's using her feet very well now on the rudders to steer it back onto the runway. And that's fantastic, a brilliant performance by Fiona Ray. In the pilot seat now is Suzanne Miles, and she's in a lot of trouble already. She's straying way off to the left and not correcting. The runway has disappeared, somewhere off to the right, and we're surely heading for a disaster. Suzanne banking very hard indeed. She's got to get that back to the right to be anywhere near the runway, but she won't make it. I think it's time to get the life jackets on. That's the ocean down there, and we're heading into it fast. Here we go, nose down. And into the water we go. Hard luck. Well, Suzanne never really got to grips with that at all. Finally, Newcastle's Chris Balfour. And already he's dropped below the glide path and just needs to lift the nose a little. And to his credit, he reacts immediately, pulls the control column back just a little to gain height, and possibly overdone it. He's a bit too high, which means he's now having to go into something of a dive. We shouldn't be looking down at the runway like that. But he's not panicking, he's working away, and he's done well to get back into a reasonably good position now. Can he get down? He's letting the nose drop too much. He must pull back, but he doesn't do it, and that's a crash. What a pity, he came so close. Now for the result, and this is how Captain Jeremy Rendell scored it. In fourth place, Suzanne Miles. She was never in control, and the graph tells the story. A nosedive into the ocean, 2 points. Third, Chris Balfour, who made a very erratic approach and despite a great effort to save the day, crashed, 4 points. Second, Thomas Marshall. He flew accurately down the glide slope, but just failed to lift the nose at the end and crashed, 6 points. And the winner, Fiona Ray. Her angle of descent was absolutely perfect, and she completed a brilliant performance with the smoothest of landings, 10 points.
Round 2, and we take to the skies in that supersonic aircraft Concorde for the last time in this series. The task for the contestants is to fly an accurate descent down the established glide slope, land safely, and roll out down the centre of the runway. Tonight's contestants will be making the spectacular approach into Mahi Airport in the Seychelles. But thanks to technology, it's all done in the incredible £8 million simulator at British Aerospace, Filton near Bristol. Instructing the contestants on the art of flying the world's fastest passenger aircraft and judging their performances is British Airways Concorde pilot Captain Stuart Robertson.
And it's Robert Gornall flying Concorde first, and directly ahead the spectacular view of the Seychelles runway. And Robert will have to respond very accurately to the instruments in front of him, particularly the flight director, because as you can see there is little margin for error on this approach. He's done well so far, but he's just beginning to drop the nose too much, and he needs to gently ease the control column back. Just a touch, but it's not happening, and we're plummeting to the ground fast, and crash! What a pity, he'd been doing quite well up to that moment. Bad luck, Robert. Now it's Trish Mitchell, and in big trouble. She's off course and a bit low, and with the warning systems blaring out, she's looking very tense. But she's hanging in there, still working at the controls, trying to correct the errors, and this is a very gallant attempt after disaster seemed inevitable. She may even land. Yes, the wheels are down. That's incredible when you think of the trouble she was in, and working with her feet on the rudder pedals to get onto the runway. And down goes the nose wheel, and her passengers are shaken but safe and sound. Well recovered, Trish. Next, David Ireland at the controls. And like the others, David has had 3 practice runs with help and guidance from Captain Robertson, but this is the assessed flight, and he's completely on his own, no help allowed. And so far, he hasn't really needed it, but just beginning to come in too steeply, and he needs to react quickly. He must raise that nose just a little, but he's not, and this is going to be a crash, I think. Yes! Oh, hard luck, David. Just lost it at the very end. Finally, it's Mike Salt. Can he make it to the runway? Mike, who teaches in Chester. And the plane weaving around a little bit, but his height's been good so far, though he's starting to push the control column forward a little too much. And we're going into a fairly steep dive now. And he'd be lucky to get out of this. He just starts to lift the nose, but I think it's going to be too late, and that's a crash into the runway. Bad luck, Mike. But now for the result. Captain Robertson scored it like this. Joint third, Robert Gornall, who made a good start, but ran into problems in the latter stages and crashed short of the runway, 4 points. And also third, David Ireland, whose flight was very similar, going into a steep dive at the end and crashed, 4 points. Second, Mike Salt. He flew very accurately down the glide slope until the very end, when he got the angle wrong and crashed, 6 points. And the winner, Trish Mitchell, who, although off course, flew a good angle of descent until the last moment, but held on to land, 10 points.